Arkansas's roads were first paved in the 1880s with a process called macadam. This is the process of crushing rocks into small pieces, pouring them out, and cementing them together to make a smooth surface. This was a cheap way to pave the roads because you can make use of the rocks found in the area that was being paved as long as they crushed easily. Around 1888, a man by the name of Ed Weigel got a contract to pave the road that went from Little Rock to Sweet Home in South Pulaski County near the Saline County line.
He was on the stretch from Granite Mountain to Sweet Home and just had maybe 5 miles to go. And he ran out of the rock that he was crushing for the macadam. So he looked around and he found some kind of reddish gray rocks and picked those up and found that they were pretty crumbly and would work really well for his macadam paving. So he started crushing those rocks and was amazed at how smooth the road was when he finished. He had never seen a road that was that smooth and that wonderful.
As it turns out, Weigel had just used bauxite to pave the stretch of road. It had recently been discovered how to smelt this soft rock. Through the smelting process, pure aluminum can be extracted from the bauxite. Aluminum was beginning to become more and more popular, making bauxite a rather valuable rock. However, Weigel had never encountered bauxite before. To try and get some answers as to why his new road was so wonderful, he visited his friend John Brannan, a state geologist.
So he took a bag of these rocks that he had been crushing to John Brannan at the state geology office and asked his friend, he said, "What are these rocks? Because I've just paved a road with them and they're wonderful and I want to find out what it is and I want to pave more roads with them later."
Brannan was astonished to see that Weigel had found bauxite, let alone paved a road with it. Immediately, he began asking him about where he found it, and even promised him that he wouldn't tell. Weigel did not understand Brannan's excitement. To him, the bauxite was just some strange old rock. He disregarded Brannan's advice to make a claim on the deposit. Had he not done this, Weigel could have been a billionaire.
So he never staked a claim. But what he did was pave the most expensive road Arkansas has ever had, and probably the most expensive road anyone has ever had.
Of course, the road is no longer paved with bauxite. It has been paved over many times since then.
Many of you have probably heard of Granite Mountain. Granite Mountain's located just to the southeast of Little Rock. And it's kind of a lie, the name of Granite Mountain, because it's a mountain not made of granite at all, but of this rock, this cyanide rock.
This rock is very similar to granite, but it doesn't have any quartz in it. Instead of quartz, it has feldspathoid minerals, which are minerals that don't have as much silica such as things like quartz. These are also called silica undersaturated minerals and feldspar minerals. One of the most important elements in these feldspar minerals is aluminum.
So the way this works, relatively recently in the tertiary period, the climate in Arkansas was much different than it is today. It was a much warmer, wetter climate, and this meant that there was a lot of water infiltrating the ground and interacting with this stuff. So this stuff had been sitting around for nearly 80 million years or something like that. It's 90 million years old, been sitting around for 80 million years or so. Anyway, this water infiltrated into these rocks and started leaching the aluminum out of these rocks. And so you can imagine, these fluids flowing on the surfaces and into cracks on these rocks and taking little ions and little atoms of aluminum out of the rock. And that's kind of similar to what happens when you fossilize something. You replace the bones in a fossil with silica. That silica comes from dissolving other rocks. So the silica dissolves and then it infiltrates in and replaces the bone that's there.
It's the same sort of idea. Aluminum is leached from the cyanide, then deposited somewhere nearby. This is the process that eventually formed bauxite. Bauxite is also composed of many minerals, including aluminum oxyhydroxide and iron oxyhydroxide. The round nodules are called piezolites.
So the idea is that this aluminum that's been leached out infiltrates and travels and then gets deposited as these round little nodules. And it's these nodules that, when compressed together, are what form the bauxite rock.
The use of bauxite has primarily been for the production of aluminum. The height of this production was in the early part of the 20th century, from the World War I to the World War II period, when aluminum was needed for everything from making aluminum foil to building airplanes. Production rates stayed high for a long time, but eventually began to wane off after the 60s and 70s. This is a chart of the tons produced in Arkansas, which at one point was the main producer of aluminum in the world, amounting up to half the world's production. Recently, there's been a resurgence in the mining of bauxite for aluminum, since it's used to make proponents, bead-like pieces that are used in hydrofracking. Most commonly, however, it's used in the foil wrapper sandwiches in, some keys, staples, faucets, window screens, and even yogurt tops. It's also used in cans, thicker cans, and even our cutlery. All these everyday items that we use come from the aluminum and the bauxite. It's interesting to think how Arkansas used to be the leading producer, but what would have happened if Ed and Weigel never even found that deposit? No, not that. No, we probably just wouldn't be the leading producer during the first and second world. Maybe that. Maybe. I'm not saying it's a definite. It's a maybe. Don't really know how that would work out. Something with planes and stuff.